The champagne glass slipped from my hand and shattered against the marble floor of my daughter's apartment. The sound echoed through the silence that followed her words. Words I never thought I'd hear from the little girl I'd carried for 9 months, the child I'd sacrificed everything for. "You're not invited to my wedding, Mom. You're not welcome there." I stood frozen in her doorway, my coat still on, snowflakes melting into the fabric from the February cold outside. Sarah, my beautiful, successful daughter, looked at me with eyes so cold they could have frozen the champagne, still fizzing in the bottle on her counter. What did you just say?" My voice came out as a whisper. "You heard me." She crossed her arms, her engagement ring catching the light, that massive princess-cut diamond I couldn't afford to help pay for, that her future mother-in-law had chosen. Bradley and his family have already made it clear. They don't want you there, and honestly, neither do I. The words hit me like physical blows. Each one landed somewhere vital, my chest, my stomach, my throat. "Sarah, I'm your mother, a mother who embarrasses me every chance she gets." Her voice rose, sharp and cutting. "Do you know what Bradley's mother said when she met you? She said you looked like you'd just walked off a factory floor. She said you smelled like discount perfume and desperation." I felt my face burning. It was true. I had come straight from my second job that night, the one cleaning office buildings downtown. I'd rushed to meet Victoria Hartwell, Sarah's future mother-in-law, at that expensive restaurant where the cheapest appetizer cost more than I made in a day. I'd worn my best dress, the one I'd had for 15 years, and yes, maybe I'd put on too much of the perfume Sarah had given me for Christmas 3 years ago, trying to cover the scent of industrial cleaner that seemed permanently embedded in my skin. "Sweetheart, I know I'm not like Bradley's family, but—" "No, you're not." Sarah's laugh was bitter, cruel even. "They're cultured, educated, successful, and you're just someone who couldn't even finish college, who works 2 minimum-wage jobs, who shows up to nice places looking like—" She stopped herself, but the damage was done. "Looking like what, Sarah?" Tears burned in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. "Like someone who worked 3 jobs to put you through private school? Like someone who went without meals so you could have new clothes? Like someone who sacrificed her entire life so you could have everything I never had? I never asked you to do any of that," she screamed. "And now you're holding it over my head like I owe you something." "Well, I don't. I got into Northwestern on my own merit. I built my career on my own. Everything I have, I earned." The knife twisted deeper. "Bradley's family is paying for the wedding," she continued, her voice dropping to something deadlier than her shouts. "It's going to be the event of the season. 300 guests, the Fairmont Grand Ballroom, a 10-tier cake, a live orchestra, and I will not have you there in your Walmart dress, crying and making speeches about how hard you worked, embarrassing me in front of everyone who matters." "People who matter?" I repeated numbly. "I'm your mother, Sarah. I raised you alone. Your father left before you were—" "Don't." She held up her hand. "Don't you dare bring him into this. Maybe he left because he saw what I'm seeing now. Someone who clings, someone who suffocates, someone who makes everything about their suffering." I stumbled backward, catching myself on the doorframe. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't my daughter speaking. My Sarah, my little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who used to make me Mother's Day cards from construction paper and glitter, who used to tell me I was her hero. "Victoria has been more of a mother to me these past 6 months than you've been in years," Sarah said, and those words broke something inside me that I didn't know could break. She understands ambition, class. She doesn't guilt-trip me for wanting nice things or shame me for being successful. She supports Bradley's career and my partnership with him. She doesn't drag us down. "I never tried to drag you down," I whispered. "I only ever wanted to lift you up." "Well, you can't." Sarah walked to her door, opening it wider in clear dismissal. "You can't lift me anywhere because you're still at the bottom, Mom, and I'm finally at the top. I'm not coming back down. The wedding is May 15th at the Fairmont. You're not on the guest list. If you show up, security will remove you. Do you understand?" I looked at my daughter, this stranger wearing my daughter's face, and realized I was seeing her clearly for the first time in years. When had this happened? When had my sweet girl turned into this? "I understand," I said quietly. Then, because I couldn't help myself, because 28 years of motherhood, don't disappear in one cruel conversation. I love you, Sarah. I always will. Don't call me, don't text me, don't show up at my office. She said it like reading a grocery list, emotionless and final. I'll send you a card when we get back from the honeymoon. Maybe. The door closed in my face. I stood in that hallway for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Around me, the expensive apartment building hummed with the quiet sounds of wealth, soft classical music from someone's home theater, the whisper of high-end air conditioning, the distant laugh of people who'd never known what it meant to choose between electricity and groceries. And in that moment, standing in my 15-year-old dress that smelled like pine sol and broken dreams, I made a decision. She didn't know. Sarah had no idea what I'd done, what I'd sacrificed, what I'd built in secret while she was busy climbing her corporate ladder and falling in love with Bradley Hartwell and his family's old money. She thought I was powerless, worthless, an embarrassment. But in my purse, pressed between my work schedule and a grocery store receipt, was a piece of paper that would change everything. That was the night I decided to teach my daughter a lesson she'd never forget. My name is Rebecca Clark. I'm 51 years old, and I've never told this story to anyone, not to my few remaining friends, not to my sister, who stopped talking to me years ago for reasons you'll understand soon enough, not even to my therapist, who I started seeing 6 months ago when the panic attacks got so bad I couldn't leave my apartment. I'm telling it now because it's been 2 years since that night in Sarah's apartment building. 2 years since my world shattered and reformed into something I barely recognize. 2 years of therapy, of sleepless nights, of questioning every choice I made as a mother. And because you deserve to know the truth before you judge me. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible, discarded, or judged for circumstances beyond your control, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. These stories travel further than I ever imagined, and knowing someone out there understands, it helps more than you know. Let me take you back to where this really began. Not that night in Sarah's apartment, but 28 years earlier, when I was 23 years old and about to make the biggest mistake of my life. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the only real thing I ever did. I'm still not sure. I met Jonathan Clark at a college party I had no business attending. I was working 2 jobs, waitressing at a diner during the day, filing papers at a law office at night, trying to save enough money for tuition. Northwestern University was my dream, the same school Sarah would later attend. I'd been accepted with a partial scholarship, but partial wasn't enough. Not for a girl from Bridgeport, Chicago's poorest neighborhood, whose mother cleaned houses and whose father had died in a construction accident when I was 12. Jonathan was everything I wasn't. Confident, wealthy, pre-law at Northwestern. He wore sweaters that cost more than my monthly rent and drove a BMW his parents had given him for his 21st birthday. When he looked at me across that crowded living room, beer in hand and that devastating smile on his face, I should have turned around and left. But I was 23 and tired and so damn hungry for something beautiful in my life. "You don't look like you belong here," he said, and God help me, I thought it was a compliment. 6 weeks later, I was pregnant. Jonathan's face when I told him, I'll never forget it. We were in his car, parked outside the diner where I worked. Late March, snow still clinging to the Chicago streets, my hands shaking as I held the drugstore pregnancy test. "You're sure?" His voice was ice. I took 3 tests. "I'm sure." Silence. Then, "My parents will disown me." Not "what do you want to do?" Not "we'll figure this out together," just immediate calculation about how this would affect him. "I'm not asking you for anything," I said, though my heart was breaking even as I said it. "I'll handle it." "How? You can't even afford school." The cruelty was casual, thoughtless. That's what made it worse. "I'll figure it out." He reached into his wallet, that expensive leather wallet his mother had monogrammed, and pulled out $300 bills. Put them on my lap like I was a prostitute he'd just finished with. "Take care of it," he said. "Don't call me again." I got out of his car and stood on that snowy sidewalk, watching his taillights disappear into the Chicago night. Those $300 were still in my pocket, crisp and insulting. I could have gotten the abortion he assumed I'd get. It would have been easier, smarter, probably. But when I looked down at my still flat stomach, something fierce and protective woke up inside me. "It's just you and me," I whispered, "but I swear to God, you'll have everything I never did." That was the promise that would consume the next 28 years of my life. I moved back in with my mother in our cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Bridgeport. She was furious at first. She'd sacrificed so much for my opportunities, and here I was, pregnant and broke, throwing it all away. But the day Sarah was born, my mother held her granddaughter and cried. "She looks like you did," she said. "Same dark eyes, same fighter's spirit. I can see it already." My mother died when Sarah was 3, breast cancer, metastasized by the time they caught it. She'd been ignoring symptoms for 2 years because she couldn't afford to take time off work for doctor's visits. I held her hand in that charity hospital ward and promised her I'd give Sarah the life she deserved. "Make sure she gets educated," my mother whispered, her voice barely audible over the machines keeping her alive. "Don't let her end up cleaning other people's houses. Don't let her be invisible." "I won't, I promise." She died that night. I was 26 years old, a single mother with a toddler, working 3 jobs, and more alone than I'd ever been. The next 15 years were a blur of exhaustion and sacrifice. I worked the morning shift at the diner, the evening shift at the law office, and weekends cleaning offices downtown. Sarah stayed with a neighbor after school, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, who charged me $20 a day. Money I couldn't afford but had no choice but to pay. I slept maybe 4 hours a night. I ate Sarah's leftovers. I wore the same 5 outfits for years, rotating them endlessly. I cut my own hair. I walked everywhere to save on bus fare. I bought expired food from the discount rack at the grocery store. But Sarah? Sarah had new clothes. She had tutoring when she struggled with math. She had that expensive calculator for science class. She had the field trip money, the class photos, the birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese that I'd work extra shifts to afford. She was brilliant. Even her teachers said so. By middle school, she was at the top of her class, winning academic competitions, collecting awards. I'd go to those ceremonies in my diner uniform, having come straight from work, and watch her walk across the stage, and every sacrifice felt worth it. "I want to go to Northwestern," she told me when she was 14, like Dad did. I froze. "How do you know about your father?" I Googled him. She said it casually, like it was nothing. "Jonathan Clark. He's a partner at Sterling & Associates now, big corporate lawyer, married, 3 kids." My chest constricted. "Sarah, did you know he's rich?" She looked at me with something I couldn't quite identify, like really rich. "And we're eating dollar store pasta while he's living in Lake Forest. He doesn't matter. We don't need him." "You don't need him," she corrected. I didn't say anything about me. That conversation should have been a warning sign. But I was too exhausted, too focused on making ends meet to see what was brewing in my daughter's heart. She got into Northwestern with a full academic scholarship. I cried for 2 hours the day the acceptance letter arrived. My daughter was going to Northwestern. My daughter was going to have the life I dreamed of. I had no idea I was creating a monster. During her freshman year, Sarah changed. She stopped calling me as often. When I visited, she seemed embarrassed by my presence, rushing me through campus, never introducing me to her friends. She started speaking differently, adopting the vocal patterns of the wealthy students around her, dropping the Chicago accent she'd grown up with. "Why do you talk like that now?" I asked once. "Like what?" "Like you're auditioning for Downton Abbey." She rolled her eyes. "I'm trying to be professional, Mom. You wouldn't understand." By her junior year, she rarely came home. When she did, she'd criticize everything. Our neighborhood. "It's dangerous, Mom. When are you moving? My clothes, you could at least try to dress nicely. My job, you're still waitressing? Haven't you thought about doing something with your life?" "I did something with my life," I said quietly. "I raised you. Well, I'm raised now. Maybe it's time you did something for yourself." She didn't understand. How could she? She didn't know that every dollar I made went to filling the gaps her scholarship didn't cover. Books, supplies, sorority dues when she rushed that expensive house sophomore year, the laptop when hers broke, the professional clothes for internships, the money for unpaid internships in the first place, since apparently, in her world, working for free to build your resume was normal. I was down to 1 meal a day by then. I'd developed a persistent cough from exhaustion. My hands shook constantly from a combination of fatigue and too much coffee. But Sarah was thriving. My daughter was becoming someone. That was all that mattered, or so I told myself. After graduation, Sarah got hired at a consulting firm making more money than I'd made in 5 years combined. She rented an apartment in Lincoln Park, a nice neighborhood I'd never be able to afford. She bought designer clothes. She went to expensive restaurants and posted photos on social media with captions like "living my best life" and "blessed." She never invited me to her apartment for the first 6 months. When she finally did, I understood why. It was beautiful, sleek, modern, everything I could never give her. "This is amazing, honey," I said, running my hand over her marble countertop. "Bradley's parents helped me furnish it," she said, and my hand froze. "Bradley?" "My boyfriend. I've told you about him." She hadn't. Or maybe she had, and I'd been too tired to register it during our brief, increasingly distant phone calls. "He's from Lake Forest," she continued. "His father owns Hartwell Industries. They're real society, Mom, like old money. And they've been so welcoming to me." Something in her tone when she said old money, reverence, aspiration, distance from her own origins, made my stomach turn. "That's nice, sweetheart. Bradley's mother, Victoria, has been showing me around their world, the clubs, the charity events, the right places to be seen. She says I have potential to really fit into their circle." "Their circle?" "The social elite, Mom." She said it like I was stupid for not understanding. "The people who matter, the connections that move, careers forward." "And what about the people who raised you? Do we matter?" Her silence was answer enough. That should have been the moment I walked away. That should have been the moment I let her go. But I'm her mother, and mothers don't give up, even when they should. A year later, Bradley proposed. Sarah called me, screaming with excitement, talking so fast I could barely understand her. The ring cost more than I'd made in 2 years. The proposal happened on a yacht. A yacht. His family had champagne and caviar waiting. "I need you to be happy for me, Mom," she said when my silence stretched too long. "I am happy for you, baby. You don't sound happy. You sound jealous." "I'm not jealous. Do you love him?" "Of course I love him." "God, why do you always have to make things complicated? Why can't you just be supportive?" "I am supportive. I just want to make sure you're marrying him for the right reasons." "What the hell does that mean?" "It means I want you to marry someone who loves you for you, not for who you can become for his family." The line went dead. She'd hung up on me. She didn't call back for 3 weeks. When she finally did, it was to invite me to meet Bradley and his parents for dinner. That disastrous dinner at the expensive restaurant where Victoria Hartwell looked at me like I was something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. "So you're Sarah's mother," Victoria said, her voice dripping with the kind of polite disdain only the truly wealthy can master. "She's told us so much about you." I seriously doubted that. "Your daughter is quite remarkable," Victoria continued, cutting into her steak with surgical precision. "We're thrilled Bradley found someone so ambitious. Someone willing to improve themselves. The implication was clear. Sarah had needed improvement. Sarah had come from somewhere lesser, somewhere like me. "Sarah's always been remarkable," I said quietly, "even before she met your family." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Though one does wonder what she might have become with more advantages earlier in life. But she's certainly making up for lost time now." Bradley's father, Richard Hartwell, said nothing. He merely observed me with the detached interest of someone examining an unfamiliar species. Sarah sat frozen between Bradley and his mother, her face carefully neutral, refusing to meet my eyes. After dinner, as we stood outside the restaurant waiting for the valet to bring their cars, plural, they'd arrived in separate vehicles, Victoria pulled Sarah aside. "I wasn't meant to hear, but I did. She's exactly as you described," Victoria murmured. "Poor thing. No wonder you're so driven to escape that life. As if I were a prison Sarah had been trapped in, as if the 28 years I'd spent loving her, sacrificing for her, had been something to flee from. That was the night I started to hate Victoria Hartwell. In the months leading up to that final confrontation at Sarah's apartment, things deteriorated further. Sarah stopped pretending to care about maintaining our relationship. Our phone calls dropped to once a month, then once every 6 weeks. When I called her, she'd answer with an exasperated sigh, like I was interrupting something important. "I'm busy, Mom. Can this wait?" It was never urgent, just a mother wanting to hear her daughter's voice. Just a mother missing her child, so I'd say yes, it could wait, and we'd hang up, and sometimes days would pass before she'd remember to call back. I watched her social media obsessively. I know I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help it. Sarah's Instagram was a gallery of her new life. Brunches with Victoria at exclusive clubs, weekend trips to Hartwell family properties. Her and Bradley at charity galas wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. In one photo, Sarah wore a diamond necklace that had to be from the Hartwells. The caption read, "Feeling grateful for my second family. Not another family or my new family, second." The implication being that the Hartwells were now her primary family, and I was relegated to second place. If I was lucky. I called her after seeing that post. It was late past midnight, but I couldn't stop myself. "Sarah, it's me. Mom, it's midnight. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I saw your post about your second family." Silence. Then coldly, "Are you stalking my Instagram?" "I'm not stalking. I'm your mother. I'm allowed to see your public posts. You're not allowed to call me at midnight to guilt-trip me about them." "I'm not guilt-tripping." "I'm hurt, Sarah. Do you understand that? Do you care?" "Of course I care, Mom. But you're being ridiculous. Victoria and Richard have been incredibly generous to me. I'm allowed to appreciate them. I've been incredibly generous to you for 28 years. Yes, and you remind me every single time we talk. Do you know how exhausting that is? You act like I owe you my entire life because you chose to have me. I chose to keep you when your father wanted me to get rid of you." The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. We'd never discussed that before. Never spoke about Jonathan's money on my lap, his cruel dismissal, his assumption that I'd eliminate the inconvenience of pregnancy. Sarah's breathing changed. "What?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything." "No. What did you mean, get rid of me?" I closed my eyes. "Too late now. Your father, when I told him I was pregnant, he gave me money for an abortion." "I don't believe you. It's true. He wanted nothing to do with us. He paid me off and told me never to contact him again." "You're lying. You're making this up to make me feel sorry for you." "Sarah, I swear to God, I'm done with this conversation. Don't call me again unless it's an emergency. And no, your feelings being hurt doesn't count as an emergency." She hung up. 2 weeks later, she banned me from her wedding. The first week after Sarah banned me from the wedding, I didn't leave my apartment. I called in sick to both jobs, something I'd never done in all my years of working. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how I'd become the villain in my daughter's story. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor who'd watched Sarah as a child, knocked on my door on day 5. "Rebecca, you need to eat." She pushed past me with a container of soup. "I hear you crying through the walls every night." "I'm fine. You're not fine. What happened?" So I told her. Everything. Sarah's cruelty, Victoria's condescension, the wedding ban. When I finished, Mrs. Chen looked at me with a mixture of pity and something else I couldn't identify. "You gave that girl everything," she said slowly. "Maybe that was the problem. How can giving your child everything be a problem? Because she never learned what things cost. Not money. I don't mean money. She never learned what sacrifice feels like, what going without feels like. She never had to fight for anything because you fought all her battles for her. I was protecting her. You were erasing yourself." Mrs. Chen stood, gathering her empty container. "And now she's learned you can be erased." After she left, I sat with those words for a long time. Had I taught Sarah that I was disposable, that I could be discarded, once I'd served my purpose? The answer, I was beginning to realize, was yes. But Mrs. Chen didn't know everything. She didn't know about the envelope in my safety deposit box at the bank, the envelope I'd been adding to for the past 23 years, the envelope that represented my only act of self-preservation in a lifetime of self-sacrifice, and she certainly didn't know about the second thing I'd been hiding, the thing even I had tried to forget about, until that night in Sarah's apartment, when rage and betrayal had finally given me clarity. Some secrets are too powerful to stay buried forever. I went back to work the following Monday. My hands shook so badly I dropped 3 plates during the breakfast shift. My boss, a kind man named Marcus who'd employed me for 15 years, pulled me aside. "Rebecca, what's going on? You've been off for a week, and now you're breaking everything. Talk to me." So I did. Marcus had known Sarah since she was a little girl, coming to the diner after school, doing homework at the counter while I worked. He'd watched her grow up, had even given her advice about college applications. "That girl needs a reality check," he said when I finished. "You want me to have a conversation with her?" "No. Thank you, but no. This is between me and Sarah. What are you going to do?" I looked at him then, and maybe he saw something in my eyes that scared him, because he took a step back. I'm going to give her exactly what she wants, I said. I'm going to disappear from her life completely. Rebecca, after the wedding, she banned you from the wedding. I know. My smile felt strange on my face, like I was wearing someone else's expression. But I'm going to give her a wedding gift anyway. Something she'll never forget. That was the moment I stopped being just a victim and became something else entirely. I spent the next 2 weeks making phone calls. Quiet calls, from a burner phone I bought with cash. I'd learned some things working at that law office for all those years. I'd learned how to find information, how to trace records, how to discover secrets people thought they'd buried, and I'd learned some very interesting things about the Hartwell family. Victoria Hartwell, for all her airs of old money propriety, had a past. I found the sealed records from her first marriage, the one that ended when she was 25 before she married Richard, the marriage to the struggling artist she'd gotten pregnant with and then abandoned once she met Richard at some charity gala, the marriage whose annulment had been bought with Hartwell money and sealed with expensive lawyers. The son from that marriage had been adopted by the artist's new wife. Victoria had signed away her parental rights without a backward glance. That son was 33 now, had no idea who his birth mother was, and lived in Seattle working as a teacher. Victoria Hartwell had erased her own child to marry into old money, and she had the audacity to judge me for being poor. But that wasn't the secret that would bring down the wedding. No, that secret was something else entirely, something I discovered quite by accident when doing a title search on the Fairmont Grand Ballroom. You see, I'd been suspicious about the wedding venue from the moment Sarah mentioned it. The Fairmont was one of the most exclusive venues in Chicago. Booking it required not just money but connections. The kind of connections the Hartwells certainly had. But what if there was a complication? What if there was something in the fine print that even the Hartwells' expensive lawyers had missed? I spent 3 evenings at the county clerk's office, going through property records and contracts, and there it was, buried in documents from 1987, when the Fairmont had been renovated after a fire. The building had been purchased using a grant from the Chicago Historical Preservation Trust. As part of that grant, there was a clause that stipulated any events held in the renovated ballroom had to be approved by the trust if they met certain criteria. Specifically, events that excluded any parties who'd contributed to the original preservation fund. And wouldn't you know it, my mother had contributed to that fund. It was a small contribution, $500 she donated in 1986, a year before she died. She'd been so proud to be part of preserving Chicago's history. She'd received a certificate with her name listed among the donors, a certificate I still had in a box somewhere with her other things, which meant technically, legally, as her heir and representative of her estate, I had standing to object to any event held at the Fairmont that excluded me. Sarah had banned me from the wedding, but my name, my mother's name, my legacy, was literally built into the venue's foundation. I sat in that dusty clerk's office, holding photocopies of documents most people would find impossibly boring, and I laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time since that night in Sarah's apartment. I had leverage. The question was, what was I going to do with it? For a week I carried that knowledge like a weapon tucked into my coat. I went to work. I came home. I imagined different scenarios, different revenge fantasies. I could cancel the wedding. I could show up anyway and dare them to throw me out. I could make a scene that would humiliate Sarah and the Hartwells in front of all their important guests. But none of those options felt right. They were too obvious, too crude, too much like something the desperate, powerless woman Victoria thought I was would do. I needed something bigger. Something that would teach Sarah a lesson without destroying her completely. Because despite everything, despite her cruelty, her betrayal, her casual erasure of my existence, she was still my daughter. And I still loved her, God help me. The solution came to me at 3 a.m. on a Thursday, 2 weeks before the wedding. I was lying in bed, unable to sleep as usual, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Sarah had posted on Instagram a photo of her final dress fitting, wearing a gown that probably cost what I made in a year. The caption read, "3 weeks until I marry my best friend. Can't wait to start our perfect life together. Hashtag blessed beyond measure. Hashtag fairytale wedding. Perfect life. Fairytale wedding. Blessed beyond measure. All of it built on erasing the woman who'd made it possible." I opened my laptop and drafted an email to the Fairmont's event coordinator. Then I drafted a second email to the Chicago Historical Preservation Trust. Then a third email to someone I'd been avoiding contacting for 28 years. Jonathan Clark. Finding his email was easy. He was a name partner at Sterling and Associates. His contact information was right there on the firm's website. Writing to him was harder. My hands shook so badly I had to stop and start 3 times. Dear Jonathan, you don't know me. Well, that's not quite true. We met 28 years ago at a party. You gave me $300 and told me to take care of it. I kept the baby. Her name is Sarah. She's 28 now, brilliant and successful, and about to marry a man whose family makes her feel like she belongs in a world you always belonged to. She's banned me from her wedding. Your daughter thinks I'm an embarrassment. I thought you'd want to know you have a daughter, and I thought you'd want to know that the Hartwell family, Bradley Hartwell's family, has embraced her as their own. They've given her everything you never did, everything I couldn't. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just telling you that you have a child who needed you, a child who deserved better than being abandoned before she was even born. Sarah's wedding is May 15th at the Fairmont Grand Ballroom. In case you're interested, sincerely, Rebecca Clark. I stared at those words for an hour. This would open Pandora's box. This would detonate a bomb in Sarah's perfect wedding plans. This would hurt her. She hurt me first, I thought. She hurt me and felt nothing. I pressed send. Then I sent the email to the Fairmont's coordinator, explaining my family's historical connection to the venue and my concerns about being excluded from an event in a space my mother had helped preserve. I copied the Historical Preservation Trust. Finally, I sent an email to Victoria Hartwell. I'd gotten her personal email through some creative searching. People like Victoria always have their information available if you know where to look. Dear Victoria, we met several months ago at dinner. I'm Rebecca Clark, Sarah's mother. I wanted to reach out woman to woman, mother to mother. I know Sarah has asked you to play a special role in the wedding. I know she sees you as a mentor, even a second mother. I want you to know I'm grateful to you for welcoming her into your family, but I also want you to know something about me that Sarah seems to have forgotten. I worked 3 jobs for 18 years to give her the opportunities that made her the woman your son fell in love with. I sacrificed everything, my health, my youth, my own dreams, so she could have a better life. I'm not asking you to invite me to the wedding. I'm just asking you to remember, when you're standing beside her on her wedding day, that someone else stood beside her first. Someone else loved her when she was helpless and small, and not yet the polished woman who fits so well into your world. Someone else made her possible. I hope the wedding is beautiful. I hope Sarah is happy. And I hope someday, when you're old and your own children have moved on to their own lives, no one makes you feel invisible. Sincerely, Rebecca Clark. I sent that email at 3:47 a.m., then I turned off my phone. The response came faster than I expected. 3 days after I sent those emails, my phone rang at 6 a.m., an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Miss Clark? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. This is Amanda Winters from the Fairmont Grand Ballroom. I'm calling regarding your correspondence with the Chicago Historical Preservation Trust. My heart started pounding. Yes? We've reviewed your claim about the 1987 preservation grant and your mother's contribution. I'm calling to inform you that we're looking into the matter. The trust has flagged your concerns as potentially valid, and we may need to postpone any events until this is resolved. Postpone? I kept my voice neutral, but inside, something wild and victorious was screaming. We take our legal obligations very seriously, Ms. Clark. The trust has requested a full review of the event in question, the Hartwell-Clark wedding scheduled for May 15th. Until we can verify that all terms of the original grant are being met, we may need to place a hold on the booking. I see. I should tell you that we've received some pointed communications from the Hartwell family attorney. They're claiming this is harassment. Is there something we should know about your relationship with the parties involved? This was my moment. I could back down. I could say it was all a misunderstanding. I could let Sarah have her perfect wedding at her perfect venue with her perfect new family. Or I could tell the truth. Miss Winters, I'm the mother of the bride. Sarah Clark is my daughter. She's banned me from her wedding because her future mother-in-law thinks I'm an embarrassment. I don't want to ruin her day. I just want her to remember that I exist. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then I see. Miss Clark, I can't discuss the specifics of our client's bookings, but I will tell you that the trust takes preservation heritage very seriously. If there's a legitimate claim that a donor's family is being excluded from an event, well, that would be problematic. We'll be in touch. She hung up. I sat on my bed, phone still pressed to my ear, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. The second response came that afternoon. An email from Jonathan Clark's personal assistant. Ms. Clark, Mr. Clark has received your correspondence. He's requested a meeting to discuss the matter you raised. Would you be available to meet at his office this Friday at 2 p.m.? Please confirm your attendance. Best regards, Michelle Torres, executive assistant to Jonathan Clark. I read that email 10 times. Jonathan wanted to meet. After 28 years of silence, of pretending Sarah and I didn't exist, he wanted to meet. What did he want? To pay me off again? To threaten me with lawyers? To beg me not to disrupt his carefully maintained life? Or, and this thought made my hands shake, did he actually want to meet his daughter? I confirmed the meeting. The third response came via text message at 11 p.m. that night, from a number I didn't recognize. This is Victoria Hartwell. I received your email. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Café Bordeaux on Michigan Avenue, noon. Come alone. It wasn't a request, it was a summons. I texted back, I'll be there. Then I sat down and tried to figure out what the hell I'd just set in motion, and whether I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I arrived at Café Bordeaux 15 minutes early. It was the kind of place I'd never normally enter. All white tablecloths and crystal wine glasses and prices that weren't listed on the menu, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. I wore my best dress, the same one I'd worn to that disastrous dinner months ago, and I could feel every eye in the restaurant tracking me as I walked to a table by the window. I didn't belong here. Everyone could see it. The hostess's polite smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The other patrons gave me quick, assessing glances before returning to their expensive meals and quiet conversations. Victoria arrived exactly at noon, dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my rent. She didn't smile. She didn't greet me. She simply sat down across from me and fixed me with a look that could have frozen fire. "I'll be direct," she said. "What do you want? Excuse me? Your little stunt with the Fairmont? The Historical Preservation Trust. The emails. What do you want? Money? Is that what this is? Because I assure you, whatever you're hoping to extort from us, I don't want your money." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "I never wanted your money." Then what? Attention? Revenge? Some pathetic attempt to hurt Sarah because you can't handle that she's moved beyond you? The words hit like slaps, but I didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 days. "I want you to understand something, Mrs. Hartwell. I spent 28 years raising that girl alone. I worked myself to exhaustion. I gave up everything. My education, my career, my health, my life. So Sarah could have opportunities. And then you swept in and took credit for the woman I created." Victoria's laugh was cold and sharp. "You didn't create her. You merely gave birth to her. We refined her. We taught her how to move in society, how to speak, how to dress, how to be someone who matters. You gave her life. We gave her quality of life. There's a difference. You taught her to be ashamed of where she came from. We taught her to aspire to something better than a mother who smells like bleach and works 3 dead-end jobs." Victoria leaned forward. "Sarah came to us rough, unpolished, desperate to escape her circumstances. We didn't make her ashamed of you, Rebecca. You did that all by yourself by being someone worth being ashamed of." The cruelty was breathtaking. And in that moment I understood why Sarah had changed. She'd learned from a master. "You have 24 hours to withdraw your complaint to the trust," Victoria continued. "If you don't, I will bury you in legal fees. I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will make your life so miserable that you'll wish you'd taken whatever money my son offered you all those years ago and disappeared." I stared at her. "Your son?" Victoria's face went white. The words had slipped out. She'd said my son instead of Bradley's father, or Richard, or any of the dozen other ways she could have phrased it. And in that slip, I saw the truth. "Jonathan Clark is your son," I said slowly, pieces clicking together. "That's why Sarah and Bradley's relationship moved so fast. That's why you've embraced her so completely. She's dating her, half-uncle," Victoria finished, her voice like ice. "Technically. From a marriage that legally never existed. From a son I gave up before Richard and I were married. A son who doesn't know I'm his mother. A son who can never know. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too hot. My head was spinning. Does Bradley know? I whispered. No one knows. Richard and I have kept this secret for 35 years. Jonathan was adopted. His birth records are sealed. There is no paper trail connecting him to me. But if Sarah marries Bradley, and Jonathan is Bradley's half-uncle, that makes her not blood-related enough to matter legally, Victoria cut in. I've had lawyers verify it. The relationship is distant enough that there are no legal impediments to the marriage. It's unconventional, but not illegal. But it's wrong. According to whom? Some outdated moral code? Rebecca, families are more complicated than you can possibly understand. This is how people like us survive. We make difficult choices. We sacrifice certain truths for greater goods. You sacrificed your own child. And you sacrificed yourself. Which one of us made the smarter choice? Victoria's smile was cruel. My sacrifice got me a mansion in Lake Forest, financial security and social standing. Your sacrifice got you a daughter who hates you and a life of poverty. So please, spare me your moral superiority. I should have been shocked, I should have been horrified, but instead I felt something else. Clarity. Does Sarah know, I asked, that Jonathan is Bradley's uncle, that she's been pursuing a relationship with her own father's nephew? She doesn't know anything about Jonathan beyond what she found on Google, and that's where it will stay. You're going to withdraw your complaint to the trust. You're going to stay away from the wedding, and you're going to take this conversation to your grave. Or what? Or I tell Sarah everything. I tell her about your pathetic emails, about how you tried to sabotage her wedding out of jealousy, about how you're so desperate for relevance that you'd ruin the happiest day of her life. I'll make sure she never speaks to you again. I'll turn her against you so completely that you'll die alone, unmourned and forgotten. Victoria stood, smoothing her suit. 24 hours, Rebecca. Withdraw the complaint, or I destroy what little relationship you have left with your daughter. She left cash on the table, $100 bill like she was paying off a servant, and walked out. I sat there for a long time staring at that money. Then I picked it up, walked to the bar, and ordered the most expensive glass of wine they had. Because I'd just learned something Victoria didn't know I knew. And it was going to change everything. The meeting with Jonathan Clark was surreal. His office was everything I expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, leather furniture, expensive art on the walls. Jonathan himself had aged well, still handsome at 52, his hair silver at the temples in a way that made him look distinguished rather than old. He stood when I entered, and I saw Sarah in his face, the same dark eyes, the same sharp cheekbones, the same way of holding himself like he owned whatever space he occupied. Miss Clark. He didn't offer his hand. Thank you for coming. You said you wanted to meet. Please, sit. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm fine. We sat in silence for a moment, measuring each other. Finally, Jonathan spoke. Is it true? Do I have a daughter? Yes. And she's marrying Bradley Hartwell? Yes. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. I need to know why you're telling me this now. After 28 years of silence. Why now? Because she banned me from her wedding, I said simply. Because she's ashamed of me. Because she thinks the Hartwells are her real family now, and I'm just the embarrassing woman who gave birth to her. So this is revenge? This is truth. I leaned forward. You had a right to know you had a daughter. She had a right to know her father. I kept you apart because you made it clear you wanted nothing to do with us. But now I think she should know who you are, what you are, that you're not just some successful lawyer she Googled. You're her father. Jonathan was quiet for a long time. Then, what do you want from me, Rebecca? I want you to decide if you're the kind of man who abandons his daughter twice. That's not fair. You paid me to get an abortion. You told me never to contact you again. You pretended we didn't exist. What part of that was fair? He flinched. I was young, stupid. My parents would have— Your parents. I laughed bitterly. Do you know who your birth mother is, Jonathan? His face went pale. What? Your birth mother, the woman who gave you up for adoption. Do you know who she is? No. My records are sealed. I've tried to find her, but— Victoria Hartwell. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Jonathan's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, denial, and then, slowly, horrible comprehension. That's not possible. It's true, she told me herself. You're her son from a first marriage she erased when she met Richard. She gave you up, sealed the records, and built a new life. A life where you don't exist. But that would mean— His voice trailed off as he did the math. Bradley is my half-brother, and Sarah is my daughter, which means Sarah is marrying her half-uncle. Yes. Jonathan stood abruptly, walking to the window. His hands were shaking. Does Sarah know? No. Victoria is desperate to keep this secret. She threatened me today, told me to back off, or she'd destroy my relationship with Sarah completely. But we have to tell them. We have to stop this wedding, do we? I stood as well. Legally, they're not close enough in relation for it to matter. Victoria had lawyers check. The wedding can go forward. The only thing that would stop it is the truth, and the truth would destroy Sarah. So we just let this happen? I don't know, and God help me, I really didn't. Part of me wants to blow everything up. Tell Sarah who you are, who Victoria is. Let her see what her perfect new family really is. But the other part loves her. Jonathan finished quietly. Even after everything, yes. We stood there, two people connected by a daughter we'd both failed in different ways, looking out at the lake and the city beyond. I never forgot you, Jonathan said suddenly. That night. I've thought about it constantly for 28 years. What I said to you, the money. I've been a partner at this firm for 15 years, and I still wake up sometimes thinking about that moment and hating myself for it. But you never tried to find us. No. I was a coward. I am a coward. He turned to face me. But I'd like to meet her, if you'll allow it. I'd like to know my daughter before this wedding happens and she becomes part of a family that's built on lies. She doesn't want to know you. She thinks you're a deadbeat who abandoned us. Then we'll tell her the truth, all of it, including about Victoria. I looked at Jonathan Clark, this man who'd once been the biggest mistake of my life, who'd caused me so much pain, who'd denied his own child, and saw something I didn't expect to see. Regret. Real, deep, painful regret. What if she hates us both? I asked. Then at least she'll hate us for the truth instead of for lies. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change all of our lives. The wedding is in 2 weeks, I said. We have 2 weeks to figure out how to tell her everything, about you, about Victoria, about the Fairmont situation. All of it. Together. Jonathan nodded slowly. There's one more thing you should know, about the Fairmont situation, about your mother's donation. What about it? The lawyer representing the Hartwells? The one who's been sending threatening letters to you and the trust? He met my eyes. It's me. Richard hired my firm to handle this. He doesn't know you're Sarah's mother. He doesn't know any of this. He just knows someone's trying to block the wedding venue. I stared at him. You're kidding. I wish I was. When you withdraw the complaint, and you will have to eventually, the trust won't actually block the wedding over this. I'm the one who'll be there to make sure you do. The irony was almost too much. So what do? We use it. Jonathan's face hardened with something like determination. I'll tell Richard I'm handling it, that I'm meeting with you to negotiate a settlement. And while they think I'm shutting this down, we'll be planning how to tell Sarah the truth. She'll never forgive either of us. Probably not. But she'll know the truth. And eventually, maybe she'll understand that we did this because we love her. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that love could fix this mess, that truth was better than the beautiful lies Sarah had built her life on. But I'd raised Sarah. I knew her, and I knew that when her perfect world shattered, she wouldn't handle it well. She'd burn it all down, and we'd burn with it. The first crack appeared 4 days later. Sarah called me at 7 a.m., her voice shaking with rage. What did you do? I'd been expecting this call, but my heart still jumped. Sarah, the Fairmont called. They said there's a problem with the venue. Something about historical preservation and donor rights. And guess whose name came up? Yours. Or rather, Grandma's. Sarah, let me explain. You're trying to ruin my wedding. After I specifically told you to stay away, you're sabotaging the venue. I'm not sabotaging anything. I simply made them aware that Grandma was a donor to the Preservation Fund and what? You thought you'd use some technicality to force them to invite you? Is that it? You couldn't handle being excluded, so you're throwing a tantrum like a child? It's not a tantrum, Sarah. It's me reminding you that my family has history in this city. That we matter. That I matter. You don't matter. She screamed it, and the words echoed through the phone. You don't matter to me anymore. Can't you understand that? I've moved on. I have a new family, a better family, and I don't need you dragging me back into your world of poverty and mediocrity." Each word was a knife. But I'd been cut so many times by her cruelty that I was almost numb to it. Almost. "Sarah, there are things you don't know. About Bradley's family. About your father. About—" "I don't want to hear about my father. He left because of you. He saw what you were and he ran, and I don't blame him. That's not what happened. Victoria warned me you'd do something like this. She said you'd try to sabotage the wedding because you're jealous. She said you'd make up lies about her family, about Bradley, about anything to keep me from being happy." Of course Victoria had gotten to her first. Of course she'd framed this as my jealous delusion. "Sarah, please, just listen." "No. I'm done listening to you. I'm done with your guilt trips and your manipulation and your constant need for attention. The Hartwell attorneys are handling the Fairmont situation. You're going to withdraw your complaint, or they'll sue you for harassment. Do you understand? They will take everything you have, which admittedly isn't much, but they'll do it just to make a point." "Let them try." "What?" I said, "Let them try. Sue me. Take me to court. Make this public. Because if you do that, Sarah, if you make this a legal battle, then everything comes out. Everything." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm not the only one with secrets, and if the Hartwells want to destroy me, I'll take their perfect facade down with me." The silence that followed was electric. "You're bluffing," Sarah said finally. "You don't have anything." "Don't I? Ask Victoria about her first marriage. Ask her about the son she gave up. Ask her why she's so desperate to keep me quiet." Another silence. Longer this time. "You're insane," Sarah whispered. "You're actually insane. Victoria doesn't have any children besides Bradley. Are you sure about that? I'm hanging up now. Don't call me again. Don't email. Don't contact me in any way. The lawyers will handle you." The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, knowing I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I'd threatened to expose Victoria's secret, which meant Victoria would retaliate, which meant this was about to get much, much worse. I was right. 2 hours later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, 2 men in expensive suits stood in the hallway holding official-looking documents. "Rebecca Clark? Yes, you've been served." They handed me a thick envelope. "The Hartwell family is filing a restraining order against you, as well as a lawsuit for harassment and attempted extortion. You're ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Sarah Clark, Bradley Hartwell, and any members of the Hartwell family. You're also ordered to immediately cease all contact with the Fairmont Grand Ballroom and the Chicago Historical Preservation Trust." They left before I could respond. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The paperwork was extensive, professional, and absolutely devastating. They were claiming I'd attempted to extort money from the family, that I'd harassed Sarah, that I'd made threats against the wedding. And they had evidence. Emails, phone records, even testimonies from people I'd never met claiming I'd been unstable and obsessive. Victoria had been thorough. At the bottom of the stack was a personal note, handwritten on expensive stationery. "You made a mistake threatening me, Rebecca. I warned you what would happen. By the time I'm done, you'll have nothing left. Not your daughter, not your dignity, and not even your pathetic little life. You should have stayed in your place. VH." I was still standing there, papers scattered around my feet, when my phone rang again. "Jonathan Clark. Rebecca, what happened?" "Richard just told me they're filing a restraining order against Sarah's mother. He doesn't know you're—" "I didn't tell him, but this is escalating fast. Victoria happened. She's burying me. We need to tell Sarah the truth. Now. Before this gets any worse. She won't listen to me. She thinks I'm insane. Then I'll tell her, as her father. Let me do this." I closed my eyes. Letting Jonathan meet Sarah, tell her the truth, it would destroy the image she had of me completely. She'd know I'd kept her father from her for 28 years. She'd never forgive me, but maybe that was the price of truth. "Okay," I said. Tell her everything. That was the night everything went to hell." Jonathan called Sarah and asked to meet her. He didn't say why, just that it was urgent and about her mother. Sarah, probably thinking Jonathan was another lawyer coming to threaten me, agreed. They met at a coffee shop downtown. Jonathan told me later what happened, his voice hollow with shock and grief. He'd started by telling her who he was, her father, the man who'd gotten her mother pregnant at 23 and then abandoned them both. Sarah had gone white, then red, then white again. "You're lying," she'd said. "I'm not. I can prove it. DNA test if you want, but Rebecca told me the truth about you, and I want to know you. I want to be part of your life. Now, after 28 years, now you want to be a father? I know it's too late. I know I don't deserve. You don't deserve anything." People in the coffee shop had started staring. My mother raised me alone. She worked herself to death for me. And you were just gone, living your perfect life. Did you even think about us? Every day, Jonathan had said. I thought about you every single day. Bullshit. It's true. I was a coward. I made the worst choice of my life. But I want to make it right. I want to help you. I want to be there for what? For my wedding to Bradley? Oh, this is perfect. This is just perfect. My deadbeat father shows up right before my wedding, probably looking for money or attention or... Sarah, there's more. Something you need to know about Bradley's family. And then he'd told her. About Victoria, about the adoption, about being Bradley's half-uncle, about the tangled, terrible family tree they were all part of. Sarah had stood up, knocking over her coffee. You're disgusting, she'd said. Both of you. My mother put you up to this, didn't she? This is her latest attempt to ruin my wedding, make up some insane story about Victoria being your mother, about me and Bradley being related. It's not a story. I can prove it. Victoria's sealed adoption records. Get away from me. Stay away from me. If you ever contact me again, I'll have you arrested. She'd walked out, leaving Jonathan sitting there alone with cold coffee and the wreckage of his confession. When he called to tell me what happened, I felt my world collapsing. She didn't believe you. She thinks we're conspiring against her. That you put me up to this to sabotage the wedding. What do we do now? I don't know, Rebecca. I don't know. But Victoria knew. Victoria always had a plan. The next morning I woke up to find my name all over local social media. Someone, almost certainly someone the Hartwells had hired, had created posts about me on every neighborhood forum, every local Facebook group, every community board. Warning: Rebecca Clark is a mentally unstable woman who is harassing the Hartwell family and attempting to sabotage a wedding. She has made threats and false accusations. If you see her, please contact the authorities immediately. There were photos of me. Old photos from Sarah's social media. Photos I hadn't known existed. Photos that made me look exactly like what they claimed. Unstable, disheveled, desperate. My phone started ringing. Reporters, bloggers, people who'd somehow gotten my number and wanted a statement. I turned it off and huddled in my apartment, curtains drawn, listening to people knock on my door and leave messages. I'd become the villain in Sarah's story, the crazy mother, the harassment, the embarrassment, and I had no way to defend myself. That afternoon, Marcus called from the diner. He'd tried my cell, couldn't reach me, and called my landline. Rebecca, I'm so sorry, I have to let you go. What? Customers are complaining. They saw the posts. They don't want you serving them. Some guy from the Hartwell family's PR firm even came by, said it would be better for everyone if you were no longer employed here. I'm sorry, I really am. But I can't afford to lose business. The law office where I cleaned called next. Same story. Clients were uncomfortable. They'd have to terminate my contract. By evening I'd lost both jobs. My phone was flooded with messages, and I'd received another envelope from the Hartwells' lawyers. They were now suing me for defamation for the false claims I'd made about Victoria. I sat in my dark apartment and realized I'd lost everything. My daughter, my jobs, my reputation, my future. Victoria had won. Or so I thought. The envelope arrived by courier the next morning, plain manila envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note and a USB drive. The note read, Miss Clark, my name is Elena Morrison. I was Victoria Hartwell's college roommate 35 years ago. I know what she did. I know about Jonathan. I know about the adoption she bought and the records she sealed. I've kept quiet for decades because I was afraid of what she'd do to me. But after seeing what she's doing to you, I can't stay silent anymore. On this USB drive is evidence. Photos, documents, diary entries Victoria left behind when she dropped out of school. Proof of everything you've claimed. Use it. Stop her. She's destroyed enough lives. I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop with shaking hands. The files were explosive. Photos of a young Victoria visibly pregnant with a man who wasn't Richard, documents from a private adoption agency, a journal in Victoria's handwriting detailing her pregnancy, her terror that Richard would find out, her relief when the adoption was finalized and she could move on with her real life, and most damning of all, a birth certificate. Jonathan Michael Morrison, born August 12, 1973, Mother Victoria Ann Morrison, father unknown. Jonathan's original birth certificate, before it was sealed and he became Jonathan Clark. I had proof. I called Jonathan immediately. She gave me evidence. A woman named Elena Morrison. She has your original birth certificate, photos, everything. We can prove Victoria is your mother. Then we show it to Sarah. We make her believe us. Jonathan, if we do this, we destroy her life, her wedding, her relationship with the Hartwells. Everything. She's marrying her half-uncle based on lies. We have to tell her. But do we? Legally, they can still marry. Maybe we just let it go. Let her have her wedding. Let her be happy. Happy based on a lie? Happy based on not knowing, I said quietly. Isn't that better than destroying her? Jonathan was quiet for a long time. Then, what kind of parents are we if we let her marry into a family built on this kind of deception, the kind who love her more than we love being right? Rebecca, I'm tired, Jonathan. I'm so tired. I've fought for 28 years. I've sacrificed everything. And maybe this is the final sacrifice. Letting her go. Letting her have her perfect life, even if it's built on lies. Even if it means she never speaks to me again. You can't mean that. I don't know what I mean anymore. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. 3 days before the wedding, Sarah showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes. Her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt instead of her usual designer clothes. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside, too shocked to speak. She walked into my tiny apartment and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd never really looked before. "It's small," she said finally. "It's home. Was this where I grew up? Until you were 6, then we moved to the place on Oakley. You don't remember? I don't remember a lot of things." She sat down on my worn couch, or maybe I chose not to remember. "Sarah, what are you doing here? I need to know if it's true, what that man said. Jonathan Clark, is he really my father?" My heart stopped. Yes. And Victoria, is she really his mother? Yes. How long have you known? About Victoria? Only for a few weeks. About Jonathan? I've always known he was your father. But you never told me. He didn't want to know you. What was I supposed to say? Sarah's face crumpled. Everything I thought I knew. It's all been a lie, hasn't it? Sarah, Bradley is my half-uncle. Victoria is my grandmother. I've been dating a relative and I didn't even know it. She laughed, but it came out as a sob. God, no wonder Victoria was so welcoming. She must have been terrified I'd find out the truth. She never wanted you to know. Well, I know now, because after Jonathan told me, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I hired a private investigator, cost me $10,000, and he found everything. The adoption records Victoria thought were sealed, the birth certificate, the connection between Jonathan and Richard Hartwell, all of it. She pulled out a folder from her bag and threw it on my coffee table. "It's all true," she whispered. "Every word." "I'm sorry. Are you? Because this is what you wanted, isn't it? To destroy my relationship with the Hartwells? To prove that you were the only one who ever really loved me? That's not what I wanted." "Then what did you want?" "I wanted you to see me." The words exploded out of me. "I wanted you to remember that I'm your mother, that I loved you and sacrificed for you and gave you everything. I wanted you to stop treating me like I was nothing. So you decided to destroy my wedding. Instead, I didn't destroy anything. I just wanted you to know the truth about the family you were so desperate to be part of." We stared at each other, both of us crying now. "I hate you," Sarah said. "I hate you for keeping my father from me. I hate you for making me feel guilty my entire life. I hate you for not being the kind of mother I needed." "And what kind of mother was that, Sarah? What kind of mother did you need?" "Someone who didn't make me feel like I owed her my entire life. Someone who had her own identity beyond being my mother. Someone who didn't sacrifice so much that I could never be enough to repay her." The truth of those words hit me like a physical blow. "You're right," I whispered. "You're right about all of it." Sarah stood up. "I'm calling off the wedding." "What? I can't marry Bradley. Not now, not knowing what I know. It's too complicated, too fucked up. Even if it's legal, even if we're not close enough in relation for it to matter, I can't." "Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." She walked to the door. "But don't think this means I forgive you. Don't think this means we're okay, because we're not. We'll never be okay. I know." She opened the door, then paused. "That man, Jonathan, he left me his number, said I could call if I wanted to talk. Should I?" I looked at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, this stranger I barely knew anymore, and made maybe the first truly selfless decision I'd made in months. "Yes, you should. He's a good man who made a terrible mistake. Just like me. Maybe we both deserve a second chance." Sarah nodded slowly. Then she left without another word. I closed the door and slid down to the floor, my back against it, and cried until I had nothing left. That was when I thought it was over. That was when I thought we'd reached the end. I was wrong. The call came at midnight, 3 days before what would have been Sarah's wedding day. "Miss Clark? This is Detective Andrea Moss with the Chicago Police Department. I need you to come to Northwestern Memorial Hospital immediately. It's about your daughter." My blood turned to ice. "What happened? Is she—" "She's alive. But there's been an incident. How quickly can you get here?" I didn't even change out of my pajamas. I just grabbed my coat and ran. The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell. Detective Moss met me in the emergency room waiting area. A tall woman with kind eyes and a grim expression. "What happened?" I demanded. "Where's Sarah? She's being treated. She's stable." "But Miss Clark, I need to ask you some questions first. When was the last time you spoke with your daughter?" 3 days ago. She came to my apartment." "Why? What's going on? And what was her state of mind?" "She was upset. She just found out some difficult family information. But she was handling it. She said she was calling off her wedding." "Detective, please, what happened?" Detective Moss gestured to a private waiting room. "Victoria Hartwell is dead." The world tilted. "What?" "She was found in her home 2 hours ago. Apparent overdose of sleeping pills and alcohol. But there are complications. Sarah was there when it happened. Sarah was she hurt?" "No, but she called 911, and when we arrived we found her sitting next to Victoria's body. She was holding a letter." Detective Moss pulled out an evidence bag containing a piece of paper. Even through the plastic, I could see Victoria's elegant handwriting. "Victoria Hartwell left a suicide note," the detective continued. "It's extensive. She confesses to multiple crimes, including bribing officials to seal adoption records, falsifying documents, and orchestrating a harassment campaign against you, Miss Clark." I couldn't breathe. "But the most significant part," Detective Moss continued, "is where she confesses to murdering her first husband." "What?" 35 years ago. The artist she married when she was pregnant with Jonathan. According to the letter, he threatened to expose her when she wanted to leave him for Richard Hartwell, so she poisoned him. Made it look like a drug overdose. She was never caught. The room was spinning. "Why would she confess now?" I whispered. "According to the note, because your daughter confronted her. Sarah went to Victoria's house tonight and told her she knew everything. About Jonathan, about the adoption, about the lies. And Victoria couldn't handle being exposed. The note says she'd rather die than face the shame of her secrets being revealed." Oh God, Sarah must be traumatized. Yes. She witnessed Victoria taking the pills. She tried to stop her, but Victoria locked herself in the bathroom. By the time Sarah called 911 and the paramedics broke down the door, it was too late. "I need to see her. I need to see my daughter. You can see her. But Miss Clark, there's one more thing you need to know." Detective Moss pulled out another evidence bag. Inside was a thick envelope. "Victoria left this for you. It was part of her final instructions. She wanted you to have it after her death." I took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check, made out to me, for $5 million. And a letter. "Rebecca Clark, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. I've taken my own life because I cannot bear to live with my secrets exposed. But more than that, I cannot bear to live knowing that you were right about me all along. You were right that I am a monster. You were right that I destroyed lives to build my perfect existence. You were right that I had no right to judge you when my own past was built on lies and murder. Yes, murder. I killed my first husband 35 years ago because he threatened to ruin my chance with Richard. I've lived with that guilt every day since. And now that Sarah knows who I really am, now that the perfect facade is cracked, I cannot continue. The money is blood money. It's from a trust fund I've kept hidden from Richard for decades. Money my first husband left me, ironically enough. I want you to have it, not as payment, not as apology, but as acknowledgement. You were a better mother to Sarah than I could ever have been. You sacrificed yourself out of love. I sacrificed others out of selfishness. You deserved better. Sarah deserved better. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I'm sorry for what I said to you. I'm sorry for trying to erase you. You were never the embarrassment. I was. Tell Sarah I'm sorry I couldn't be the grandmother she deserved. Tell her the Hartwell name comes with a curse, and she's better off without us. And tell Jonathan, tell my son I'm sorry I gave him away. He was the only good thing I ever created, and I threw him away like garbage. Goodbye, Rebecca. You won. But I don't think either of us feels victorious, do we? Victoria Ann Hartwell. I read the letter 3 times before I could process it. She left me $5 million, I said numbly. Guilt money, Detective Moss said. Or maybe genuine remorse. We'll never know. Can I see Sarah now? Yes. But Miss Clark? She's not in good shape. Witnessing a suicide, especially of someone she cared about. It's traumatic. She's going to need support. I nodded and followed the detective to Sarah's room. My daughter sat on a hospital bed wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen. When she saw me, something in her expression broke. "Mom," she whispered. I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, sobbing like she was a little girl again, like she used to when she had nightmares. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." She took the pills right in front of me. Sarah choked out. She said she'd rather die than live with everyone knowing what she was. She said I'd destroyed her perfect life by digging up the truth. This isn't your fault, isn't it? If I hadn't confronted her. She made her own choices, terrible choices. This isn't on you. Everything's ruined the wedding, Bradley. I can't marry him now, not after this. Not knowing his mother was a murderer. Not knowing what we really are to each other. I know, sweetheart. And you. She pulled back to look at me, her face streaked with tears. You tried to warn me. You tried to tell me the truth about them. And I called you crazy. I called you jealous. I banned you from my wedding and destroyed your life because I wanted to be part of their perfect world. And it was all built on lies and murder. Sarah, I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry for everything I said. For how I treated you. For being ashamed of you. You were right. About everything. And I was too blind to see it. I held her while she cried, while she purged years of toxic ambition and misplaced priorities, while she grieved the loss of the fantasy life she'd built in her mind. "What am I going to do?" she finally asked. "You're going to heal. You're going to process this trauma. You're going to figure out who you are without the Hartwells, and you're going to decide what kind of person you want to be. Will you help me? Of course. I'm your mother. I'll always help you." She was quiet for a moment. "Then Victoria left you money, didn't she?" The detective said she left instructions. "Yes, $5 million. Sarah's eyes widened. That's blood money, from her first husband, the one she killed." "I know. What are you going to do with it?" I thought about that question. Thought about 28 years of poverty and sacrifice. Thought about Victoria's cruelty and her final act of contrition. Thought about what this money could mean. I'm going to use some of it to take care of myself. To finally rest. To maybe go back to school like I always wanted. I looked at my daughter. And I'm going to use the rest to set up a foundation. For single mothers who are trying to put themselves through college. So they don't have to choose between their education and their children like I did. Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. "That's beautiful, Mom. It's what your grandmother would have wanted. My mother. The one who donated to the Historical Preservation Fund, the one who told me to make sure you got educated. She'd want other mothers to have that chance. Can I help? With the foundation? You want to? I want to do something meaningful. I've spent so many years chasing the wrong things, money, status, acceptance from people who didn't matter. Maybe it's time I do something that actually helps people." I pulled her close again. "We'll do it together." And for the first time in years, I felt something like hope. The aftermath was messy. The Chicago media had a field day with Victoria's suicide and confession. The story had everything: wealthy socialites, hidden murder, secret adoptions, star-crossed relationships. Richard Hartwell was devastated, both by his wife's death and the revelation of her crimes. Bradley went into seclusion, refusing to speak to anyone, including Sarah. Jonathan reached out to both of us. He and Sarah started having careful, tentative conversations. He didn't try to force a relationship, didn't demand forgiveness for his abandonment. He just showed up, consistently, the way a father should. Sarah moved back into my apartment temporarily while she figured out her next steps. It was cramped with both of us there, but we made it work. We had dinner together, watched movies, talked about everything and nothing. Slowly, painfully, we started rebuilding what we'd lost. One night, about a month after Victoria's death, Sarah brought up the wedding venue situation. "I never understood the whole Fairmont thing," she said, "about Grandma's donation. Was that real? Or were you just trying to stop the wedding?" "It was real," I said. "Your grandmother donated $500 to the Historical Preservation Fund in 1986. She was so proud to be part of preserving Chicago's history. I found the clause about donor exclusion when I was researching the venue. So you really could have blocked the wedding?" "Maybe. Probably not. But I could have made it very difficult." "Why didn't you? Why did you just threaten it instead of actually following through?" I looked at my daughter. "Because despite everything, despite how much you'd hurt me, I didn't want to actually ruin your wedding day. I just wanted you to see me, to remember I existed." Sarah was quiet for a long time. "Then, I see you now, Mom, finally. And I'm sorry it took Victoria dying for me to pull my head out of my ass." "Language," I said automatically, and we both laughed. It wasn't perfect. We still had hard conversations ahead of us. Years of resentment and pain don't disappear overnight. But we were trying. That was something. The biggest surprise came 3 months later, when the Historical Preservation Trust contacted me about the Fairmont situation. "Miss Clark, we wanted to follow up on your inquiry about your mother's donation and the venue booking. We've reviewed the situation and we'd like to do something special." "What do you mean?" "Your mother's contribution was small but significant. She was one of the original donors who helped save the Fairmont from demolition. We'd like to honor her memory with a dedication plaque in the ballroom, and we'd like to invite you and your daughter to a special ceremony." The ceremony was beautiful. They unveiled a plaque with my mother's name, Patricia Ann Chen, along with the other preservation donors. Sarah came with me, and we stood together in that grand ballroom, looking at my mother's name etched in bronze. "She'd be so proud of you," Sarah said softly, "of how you raised me, of who you are. She'd be proud of you, too, of who you're becoming." Sarah took my hand. "I'm thinking about going back to school. Not Northwestern. Somewhere new. Maybe for social work. I want to help people who are actually struggling, not just help rich people get richer." "That sounds perfect. And I want to work on the foundation with you. The one for single mothers. I know I don't have your experience, but I have resources now. Connections. I can fundraise. I can get corporate sponsors. I can actually make a difference." I squeezed her hand. "We'll make a difference together." And we did. It's been 2 years since that night Sarah banned me from her wedding. 2 years since Victoria's suicide and confession. 2 years since my world shattered and reformed into something I never expected. The Clark Chen Foundation for Single Mothers in Education is now a reality. We've awarded 50 scholarships in our first year of operation, helping women like I was. Women working multiple jobs, raising children alone, dreaming of a better life. Sarah runs the foundation full-time. She's brilliant at it. Turns out all that ambition and drive she learned from the Hartwells translates well to non-profit work when it's directed at actually helping people. I went back to school myself, enrolled in an online degree program through DePaul University. I'm 53 and studying sociology, finally finishing the education I abandoned when I got pregnant. It's hard balancing classes with foundation work, but it's also exhilarating. I'm learning, growing, becoming someone beyond just Sarah's mother. Jonathan is part of our lives now. He and Sarah have a complicated but genuine relationship. He's teaching her to be wary of wealth and status, to value substance over appearance. He's also been helping with the foundation, using his legal expertise to structure the organization properly. He'll never get back the 28 years he missed, but he's making the most of the time he has now. Sarah never married Bradley. They tried to maintain some kind of relationship after Victoria's death, but it was too complicated, too tainted by tragedy and lies. Last I heard, he'd moved to New York and was working in finance. I hope he found peace. Despite everything, I don't wish him ill. As for the Fairmont Grand Ballroom, Sarah and I go there sometimes to see my mother's dedication plaque. We talk about sacrifice and love and the ways we hurt the people we're trying to protect. We talk about Victoria and the terrible choices she made to escape her past. We talk about how wealth and status can corrupt, how desperation can make us cruel, how love can look like a lot of different things. Sarah asked me once if I regretted everything that happened, if I wished I'd just stayed quiet, let her have her perfect wedding to Bradley, avoided all the pain and trauma that followed. No, I said, because the wedding would have been built on lies. Your marriage would have been built on lies. And eventually those lies would have destroyed you, even if the truth destroyed me instead. The truth didn't destroy you, it freed you. It hurt like hell, but it freed you. She thought about that. Then do you think Victoria felt free when she took those pills? I think Victoria felt tired of maintaining the lie, tired of being someone she wasn't, tired of running from her past. I'm tired too sometimes, Sarah admitted. Tired of feeling guilty for how I treated you. Tired of grieving for the life I thought I'd have. That's normal. Healing is exhausting. Yeah. She leaned her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was little. But at least we're healing together this time. And that, more than anything, was worth all the pain. I don't know what the moral of this story is. Maybe it's that the truth always comes out eventually. Maybe it's that wealth and status don't protect you from consequences. Maybe it's that a mother's love can survive even the cruelest betrayals. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just that we're all human. We make terrible choices. We hurt the people we love. We build facades to hide our pain. And sometimes those facades collapse and we're left with nothing but the truth. The truth is messy, the truth is painful. But the truth is also what allows us to finally be real with each other. Sarah and I are real now. No more pretending, no more facades, just a mother and daughter trying to figure out life together one day at a time. It's not the fairy tale ending Sarah once dreamed of, but it's honest. And in the end, honesty might be the greatest gift we can give each other. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to tell. There are parts I'm not proud of. The manipulation, the revenge plotting, the way I used information as a weapon. I'm not the perfect victim in this story. I made mistakes too. But I'm learning. We're both learning. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or discarded or judged for circumstances beyond your control, I want you to know you matter. Your story matters. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't. And if you're a parent struggling to connect with a child who's pulled away, I want you to know, sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes love means telling hard truths even when they'll hurt. Sometimes love means accepting that you can't control how your children see you, only how you see yourself. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Stories Grandma Never Told. I share new stories every day, stories about family, betrayal, survival, and the complicated ways we love each other. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've experienced something similar. Tell me if this story made you think differently about your own family relationships. Thank you for watching until the end. Thank you for witnessing my truth. And remember, every family has secrets. The question is, do those secrets protect us or poison us? In my case, revealing the secret saved my daughter's life, even if it almost destroyed both of ours in the process. Until next time,